Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtual Legality. I'm your host, Richard Hoeg, managing member of the Hoeg Law Business Law Firm of Northville, Michigan. And to be frank, I had not anticipated doing another Activision Blizzard video for at least a little while. If you look at my video page right now, you see almost nothing but Activision Blizzard videos. But what can I say? They have been in the news, and for good reason. They've been going through a lot of stuff, which has led to a almost 30 video series called Activision Under Fire at present. But I decided that I wanted to do this video for you all because, frankly, I was surprised at how this particular article from the Wall Street Journal yesterday, Sunday the 21st of November, has been matriculating down the rest of the journalism outlets, particularly in the video game industry. Now, what does this article say? Simply, it says Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick tells colleagues he would consider leaving if he can't quickly fix problems. Subheading, Kotick stopped short of saying he would step down in a Friday meeting with executives. Now, the Wall Street Journal is unfortunately a paywalled service which I have looked into paying for so that I can better talk to you all about it. However, they allow subscriptions online, which I love, and cancellations are limited only to phone calls. And I just don't subscribe to outlets that use those particular parameters. So my apologies. We're going to have to rely solely on the paragraphs we can read and what's been repeated by these other outlets. But frankly, I don't think the Wall Street Journal had very much to report. So let's take a look at their opening two paragraphs. 1. Activision Blizzard Inc. Chief Executive Bobby Kotick has told senior managers he would consider leaving the company if he can't quickly fix the culture problems at the video game giant, according to people familiar with his comments. So 1, we've got anonymous sources again. 2, and this might be even more critical to actually analyzing what's going on here, we don't have quotes. And to the best of my knowledge, there are no quotes about this particular topic provided in this article, even if we could read it all. Certainly, every other outlet I looked at didn't have quotes while summarizing what the Wall Street Journal put forth. Instead, it's these kind of editorial summaries that are provided by a game of telephone from people familiar with the comments to the Wall Street Journal. The second paragraph adds a little bit more color, in which they say Mr. Kotick, who has led Activision for 3 decades, stopped short of saying he would step down in a Friday meeting with executives of the company's Blizzard Entertainment unit, but left the possibility open if misconduct issues across the company weren't fixed with speed. And that is in quotes, these people said. So the only quote out of all of this is the notion that at some point, Bobby Kotick used the phrase with speed to describe what he was talking about here. Now, I looked at this. A lot of people pinged me about it yesterday. And ultimately, I said, that's nothing. That's a whole lot of nothing. There's a reason the thumbnail to this video says saying anything, everything, and nothing at all. Because I looked at that and said, I don't even understand how this was reported by the Wall Street Journal, because it literally says nothing. And yet, when I opened up my browser to take a look at researching this video, when people kept contacting me about it, you see it repeated by PC Gamer, Destructoid, Barron's, IGN, GameSpot, Nintendo Life, etc., all summarizing almost exactly what we saw in the Wall Street Journal article. I've just plucked out the Destructoid summary here so that you can see it. We've got IGN. Activision Blizzard CEO would reportedly consider stepping down. GameSpot, Bobby Kotick says he will consider stepping down. Nintendo Life, Activision Blizzard boss Bobby Kotick is reportedly open to quitting as abuse claims rock the company. A little extra color from Nintendo Life. And then Kotaku was actually the only source I saw summarize a little bit more from the article. It says it's also said that at a separate meeting on Friday, top executives of Activision Publishing, which isn't the same as Activision Blizzard and isn't the same as Blizzard Entertainment, relayed to Mr. Kotick that some employees wouldn't be satisfied unless he resigned, according to those people, and that Mr. Kotick said he was ashamed of some of the incidents that had happened on his watch and apologized for how he has handled the unfolding problems. Now, I have no doubt that Activision Publishing relayed to Mr. Kotick accurately that some employees in this giant monolithic set of corporations would not be happy unless Bobby Kotick were gone. We see that in the public. We see that in these outlets. We undoubtedly see that from a better ABK, which is pushing hard for that outcome in their Twitter and other places. So that's accurate. Mr. Kotick then saying he was ashamed of some of the instances that has happened on his watch also matches up with the press releases that he has put out there. So their tone is apologies for what has happened, but we are fixing things and we aren't the same Activision as we have been for the prior 2 decades at this point anyway. And then allaying some of the fears, concerns, or demands of his own internal employees by suggesting that, hey, maybe there's a set of circumstances under which I would leave. And that ultimately doesn't mean anything. Now, I know a lot of you come here to look at my corporate messaging analysis. I can look at it here without the quotes, but even what was relayed to the Wall Street Journal provides all of the legal weasel words that you could possibly need. And I've highlighted some of them in these particular clips. You see, Activision Blizzard Inc. Chief Executive Bobby Kotick has told senior managers what? That he would consider leaving the company if he can't quickly fix the culture problems at the video game giant, according to people familiar with his comments. And here, we should take a step back, because not only is this anonymously sourced, but in terms of what is being described here, we have a conversation between Bobby Kotick and not every line worker at Activision, but the senior managers at his company, that nevertheless, immediately after having the discussion, gets leaked to the Wall Street Journal. Now, in my mind, and we're speculating here because we have to with this set of facts, there are 2 ways to see some kind of leak like this one. One, you've basically lost at least important loyalty from some of your most senior management, and they're immediately running to outlets like the Wall Street Journal to report on what you're saying about the company. That's a possibility, but seems unlikely for senior managers. You never know. Or 2, you, Bobby Kotick, want it known in public that you are, quote unquote, considering leaving should the chips fall that way, because you, Bobby Kotick, view that as somehow advantageous to your position. And it's pretty easy to come to that type of conclusion if you're the CEO of this company, you're under fire, you just had an expose written about you in the Wall Street Journal. You say, look, I'm not going to leave. And we're going to talk about how all of this language doesn't mean anything about him leaving. But I'm not going to leave, but I want it to be known that I'm taking this seriously. And hey, if I can't, quote unquote, fix things, then of course I would leave, because my job is to make sure the culture is fixed. And of course, if I can't fix it, I would leave. So I'm going to have this conversation, and then let's get it out there to the Wall Street Journal. Let's start to try to control this messaging much better than we have been, which has been almost not at all since the summer lawsuits from the state of California. And let's get it out there in these outlets so that it gets reported on everywhere and is said, hey, maybe I'll leave. Give them a little sense of hope so that I can later say, hey, I fixed it. Continuing, Mr. Kotick stopped short of saying he would step down. This is important. This is an important part of the conversation. I'm not promising anything. I'm not saying I will step down. The word I used is considered. But I will leave the possibility open if I can't fix things, quote unquote, with speed. Now, I think, even without being in virtual legality, even if you're just on the internet, even if you're just a normally cynical person operating in the year 2021, you can see these things without my help. Nevertheless, this is getting reported on in so many outlets. I wanted to make a short video talking about what is patently obvious to anyone that parses these kinds of statements. And you can see what I call fully controlled conditionals at the heart of these 2 paragraphs in the Wall Street Journal. What do I mean by that? I mean that you have set up conditionals. I will leave if I can't quickly fix it. I will leave, but I'll only consider leaving if I can't quickly fix it. I will leave if I can't quickly fix it with speed. These are all things that I fully control, how quickly I move, what I mean when I say fix. And if these conditionals aren't met, I don't have any even kind of moral or ethical obligation to consider leaving, because I fully control when these things happen, and I won't have to consider leaving if I don't otherwise meet this quote-unquote obligation I've put forth in the Wall Street Journal. So consider is pretty obvious, right? When we talk about these statements, it means even if I fail, if I can't quickly fix the culture problems, if they aren't fixed with speed, I will then consider leaving. And consideration isn't really an obligation at all. It's an agreement to agree down the line. It's kicking the can to the committee that will talk to the task force, that will talk to the group that maybe winds up with me leaving at the end of the day. It's a consideration. It's not a promise. Or I'll do it quickly or with speed. In the law, if we looked at these in a contract and said, hey, I promise to do something quickly, the other side, the other counsel in that negotiation would say, what do you mean by quickly? What do you mean by with speed? We should put some numbers around this. What are you talking about in terms of fixing this? We know that they can put numbers around these kinds of concepts because we saw that Activision Blizzard has promised to try to get women and non-binary workers in their company up to something like 50% over a 5-year timeline. That's what they have set for themselves. We don't know how much they will succeed at that, but they've actually set something quantifiable that people on the outside can check against. Here, we've got quickly and with speed. Is that 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 5 years, like the other timeline we just talked about? We don't know. And more importantly, the person that sets it is Bobby Kotick. If he decides that this isn't quote unquote quickly, that people are asking for results too fast, then by God, his word is law when it comes to these kinds of statements. Finally, we get the entire concept of fixing this, right? We're only a few months removed from Activision Blizzard telling the state of California that they're crazy for bringing the lawsuit that they did, from a number of other statements made internally to their own employees that suggested that those employees were acting too fast, too hastily in agreeing with what California is doing, then with what the EEOC is doing, then with joining a better ABK, then with reporting all the problems that they had with the company on Twitter and Reddit and social media and elsewise. Now, you don't have to agree with what is happening at either the corporate level or at the employee level, but we do know that Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick, who we expect directed most of the statements that Activision Blizzard has made in public on these points, don't necessarily even know what's wrong at the company or with respect to the company culture, let alone having the capacity to fix it or determine when it is fixed. Now, since Bobby Kotick remains CEO and since he will only consider leaving if he doesn't quickly fix these things, what you're left with is a promise that lawyers like to call a water sandwich. It looks like something, potentially. It gets reported in the Wall Street Journal and Barron's and important places, and certainly around the video game industry. But when you go to bite into it, you don't find delicious meats and cheeses. You find nothing but water. And soggy bread does not nourish the soul or the body. And unfortunately, that's what Bobby Kotick has left us with here. And again, what we see is a set of Activision Blizzard actions, here embodied in their CEO Bobby Kotick, that does nothing to allay the fears of anyone that is concerned with how Activision Blizzard is operating today. And yet, they still primarily got what they wanted out in terms of coverage. I'll consider leaving if I can't fix it quickly. Provides the unknowing, unwitting reader of headlines like these with the notion that, well, they're on it. He's working on it. If I'm not so invested or interested in this particular story, Bobby Kotick's working on it, and if he doesn't succeed, by God, he'll step down. It's a pretty honorable position just from the outside looking in, and yet when we really analyze what was said, we find no obligation, we find no promise, and we find no reason to believe that this individual or the individuals intimately related with him are in a good position to quickly fix anything with speed. This has been a short episode of Virtual Legality, but I think an important one based on the reporting that's going around on this topic. If you like these conversations, if you get value out of our discussions of business and the law through the lens of pop culture, technology, video games, and of course, Activision Blizzard, which has been dominating our playlist for the past few weeks, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon or looking at the other ways to support us listed in the description, or just subscribing, telling your friends, upvoting, or downvoting. Put that downvote in, and you can check out the earlier video we made today on the dislike button and YouTube. I still like it. I'll still find a way to tell you if a video is massively disliked by you all. I promise that. Otherwise, just sharing it around the internet is every little bit of help that we need. If you caught this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. And if you listen to it as a podcast, thank you so much for listening. And I will catch you on the very next episode of Virtual Legality. Virtual Legality is a YouTube video series with audio podcast versions presented as commentary and for education and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have legal questions about the topics discussed, please consult your own legal counsel.